So, good morning, Redeemer, once again. It's good to be in touch with you again on these early morning, or whatever time of day it is to you. And I just want to, by way of introduction, just say, although it's good to read the whole Bible, it's good to have an overview, to understand God's method, God's plan of salvation throughout the ages, how he dealt with the nation of Israel, how he sent his son, and how the early church faced the challenges of spreading the gospel of good news, the message of salvation. It's good to have that overview. It's good to keep reading the Bible and keep understanding how different books fit into that story. But occasionally, it is also good just to spend a little bit of time meditating on one single verse, as we're going to do just over the next couple of sessions. And the verse we're going to look at is in Luke chapter 12 verse 32, where Jesus is talking to his disciples. He says, "Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's pleasure to give you the kingdom." Now, just a short verse, but when we begin just to center in upon some of the words that Jesus uses, we find that he doesn't use any of them lightly. And when we begin to just meditate on what exactly was Jesus trying to communicate here, then we can get something that really nourishes our soul, really gets down deep into our very being, and helps to speak to us of something quite profound, something quite important. You see, each word that Jesus speaks in this verse is intended to help take away the fear that God is somehow begrudging in his benefits to us, that somehow he is reluctant to bless us, and that underneath is really just a little bit annoyed with us. So Jesus takes the time to really emphasize one or two aspects, and we're going to start with just picking out some of these words and see what we can gather from them. So we're going to start with the word pleasure. Now, you could translate this, "It pleased God," or "God chose it gladly," or "It was a pleasure to him." What Jesus meant was that God is not acting in this generous way to hide something he doesn't really like. So he's not saying, "Oh, well, I'll have to be generous for a while, even though I don't really want to be, because what I really want to do is bring judgment upon sinners." No, God is acting here in total freedom. He's acting out his deepest delight. God's joy, his desire, his want and his wish, his hope and pleasure and gladness and delight is to give the kingdom to his flock. This is not a duty that he has to sign up to. It's not an obligation or a necessity. It's not trying to fulfill some sort of promise he made a while ago. But this is his pleasure. And that indicates to us something of the greatness of his heart. So when he says, "Fear not, little flock, it is my pleasure," he really means it. He wants us to really just center it upon that word. It is his pleasure. It is he's free to do as he likes, and yet his pleasure is to give us the kingdom. So we're going to look at some of the other words in this verse over the next few mornings. Not quite sure how many, but we'll see how we go. So see you tomorrow.